I want to credit Ohio State because, as Bill Raftery said on the broadcast, they came prepared, they defended. The talent of this Buckeye team, we thought going into the season they could be a top 20-like team. Today they performed like it. But Rob, 61 points for Kentucky, now 63 with $1:31 left. 4 of 21 from 3. What has gone wrong for Kentucky today?
This felt like a team that walked into this game thinking we just packed to fly to New York and then fly home for Christmas break. Like it's one of those odd things about the college basketball schedule. That's how it works, right? Randolph, you know this, man. You go on these trips, you play these neutral site games, you play a road game, you play at home, whatever it is, that last game before you head home for Christmas, you got your stuff there with you. A lot of these guys are going straight to the airport after this game to head home to go see their family. They've been on campus since June. They've been working all this time, right? Getting ready. You have all the practices, the preseason stuff. And you get here and it's only natural to kind of look forward. And if you're Kentucky, you're sitting here at 10-1, you're top 5 in America. You're playing an Ohio State team that's been getting their brains beaten in for the last couple of weeks. And it's like human nature that this is kind of how it plays out. They didn't shoot the ball well. That is very clear. I was much more concerned with like how sloppy they were offensively. I was much more concerned with, especially in the first half, like missed defensive rotations. You know, this is a team that is not going to overwhelm you with talent like other Kentucky teams have in the past. Like they got to show up and they got to be where they're supposed to be. They got to run their stuff the right way. You can't have the play that sticks out to me more than anything else, right? I mentioned this to you guys before. They're down by 6 with like 14 minutes left in the second half. They had just gone on this little run. I think the lead was 16 at one point. They had gotten it down to 51-45. They get a stop. Ortega always coming down. He's got Brandon Garrison cutting down the lane. He throws him a lefty pass. Should have been a bounce pass. It ends up being a turnover. Would have been a dunk. Ends up being a turnover. Ohio State comes down at the other end after a TV timeout, bangs a 3. They're down by 9. Very next possession for Kentucky, you get there was a miscommunication on a switch, and Jackson Robinson ends up all alone in front of the rim and misses a point-blank layup that you just cannot miss. And Ohio State goes down at the other end, and not 10 seconds later, Mobley's hitting a little mid-range pull-up that pushes the lead to 11. And it's like those are the fine margins when you can't completely out-talent a team, right? If you are Kentucky, the way that this roster is built, you're not loaded with pros. There's no Anthony Davis out there. There's no Michael Kidd-Gilchrist out there. There's no De'Aaron. It's not the same kind of Kentucky team. You can't make those little mental mistakes, and that's what Kentucky did today, and it bit them. And it doesn't change the way that I feel about them long term. It doesn't change the way what I think this team is. I think this was hey, we're in New York City. We're getting ready to go home for break. This is who we're playing. This is what they've done in the past, and they just didn't show up tonight. It is what it is, Randolph.
I thought they got beat up. I thought the more physical team won the game. I mean, give Ohio State credit. I mean, we're talking like Ohio State is a bad team. I mean, this team was ranked at one time. We talked about losses. Their losses are to Pitt, and no, they got some bad ones. They got some ugly ones. So if they got their money's worth when they got their losses now, they got A&M, Auburn, Maryland, and Pitt. So they've lost to 4 good teams. So as far as their tournament hopes, they needed a resume winning like this to beat against a team like Kentucky. But they were the more physical team. I thought they bullied Kentucky a little bit. Or not a little bit. I think just were the more physical team, getting through screens, dribble handoffs, everything. And Kentucky's going to have games like this because they're dominated by three-point shooting. They were 4 of 21. I'm sure it'll finish up, whatever, they'll finish up 4 of 20-something. But if they don't shoot the three well, they'll have games, like particularly when they get into conference play. So they're going to have some struggles. I have nights like this. When you live by the 3, you're going to die by it. Give Ohio State credit here. They lost to a good team. They lost to a more physical team. And I don't think it changes anything we're saying, but, it gives them a little bit of humble pie when they come back from Christmas break. It gives Coach Pope a little bit, ammunition to kick them in the ass a little bit. But credit to him, man. Credit to Ohio State. They took this game. They didn't just win. They were the better team today.
I think as much as anything, Fanta, I think that is the story, right? Aaron Bradshaw, who hadn't been around the team for a while, had 11 points, a couple blocks. I thought that he played really well and was really effective, especially defensively. Quez Glover, who we were trying to remember this right before we went live, RC. He was at Samford, then he transferred to BYU, I believe, right, with Pope, and then left there, and I think he was at Kansas State for a minute, now he's at Ohio. Yeah, so he's bounced around in the last couple of years. missed the last 8 games, comes out tonight. I think he last I checked the box score, he had 9 points off the bench. So you got 20 points right there off the bench from 2 impact guys that you were expecting to have this season that had not lived up to maybe their expectations prior to tonight. And then your guy Bruce Thornton, you were just about to mention him, John. Like he was unbelievable. He was the best player on the floor tonight. And when you got the best player on the floor, you're going to win a lot of basketball games.
Bruce Thornton is one of the best players in the country that nobody talks about. This kid is a stud, and it's because Ohio State has not won enough as a team over the years. And under Chris Holtmann and now under Jake Diebler, they were in position. They had Pittsburgh beat. They were up by 4 with 8 seconds to go. They did not finish it off. Thornton is a stud. He's a bulldog of a guard. Today he goes for 30 points. 30 against Kentucky. That he's at the top of the scouting report, and he still scores 30 against the Wildcats. And on top of that, when John Mobley Jr. gets cooking, the freshman, I think, is one of the more underrated freshmen in the country. Ohio State just showed what's possible this season under Jake Diebler. What's possible for them? They could be a top 6 team in the Big Ten. The Big Ten is deep. It's deep. I mean, there's a number of really good teams. Is there a national championship team? I don't think so. But I think there's a lot of really good teams in this league, and it's going to be a bear of a conference, and it's going to be deep. But these are the wins that if you lose 3 of 4 in the Big Ten, you can fall back on. You can say, we got this win over Kentucky. This is a huge resume victory for the Buckeyes, and it's a great performance by them. And I thought Jake Diebler, when they elevated him when they lifted the interim tag, I thought, Rob, that was the right move by this program. A lot of times they lift the interim tag from somebody. There's always a rich amount of debate. Only time is going to tell. But this is a move-the-needle win for Ohio State, and I'm in agreement with you. Is it time to panic if you're Kentucky? Of course not. It's not time to panic. They shot the ball like garbage today. They shot 4 for 22 from 3. Mm-hmm. They met a Big Ten defense. They got taken to school. And guess what, Kentucky? And Rob and Randolph, I'll go to you on this. Kentucky's role has changed, Randolph, in about 7 weeks. They've gone from the fun story to everybody in the country knows about Kentucky, because I would say, Randolph, they've been talked about as much as any team in college basketball.
And they should. It's Kentucky. And I find out that's about to be a meme, because I'm end up saying all the time, it's Kentucky. Like, they're good, right? Like they're good. And so, listen, we're going to find out a lot more that the question becomes when they get in the conference and they're not shooting the ball like this, they're going to have to find ways to win, because the conference is just loaded. And there's so many defensive-oriented teams. We say what we want with Bradshaw. His ability to come up, I thought he single-handedly, when he was in the game, affected in so many ways, because he was playing off in drop coverage. He was athletic enough to come up on the ball screen, let the guard get back in front of the ball, and then take away lob threats and everything else from Williams. So, I mean, it's a hell of a win for these guys. But, again, Kentucky, when they get in the conference play, is going to have nights like this, because, again, they're not going to make, 10, 11 threes every game. Well, it's just going to be game. Can they find ways to win when they're not making shots? Can they rely on their defense to make things?
Rob, does this affect their ceiling in your mind of what he's saying in terms of, because they're reliant to the degree that they are, because there's an interchangeability to who their alpha is? Does this, you've said even after a couple of big Kentucky wins that you still have some things that you're looking at. Did this expose something that you get concerned about for them in the SEC? Because we both know the SEC is the best conference in college basketball by a wide margin.
No, this is just, it kind of highlighted why I was a little bit worried about them, because they don't just have a guy that can go bail you out of a possession, right? They don't have a guy that can bail you out if you need someone to go out and get you 30 on a night to win, kind of like what Bruce Thornton did. They don't have that guy that can just go completely into takeover mode. And to answer your question, Fanta, this doesn't change my opinion of them at all. Like, I don't think that Kentucky is actually the 4th best team in college basketball right now. They deserve to be ranked number 4 in college basketball, but I don't think that they're the 4th best team in college basketball. I think they're closer to that like 6 to 10 range, at like kind of 2 to 3 seed area. And, getting 20-pieced by Ohio State in a building that was probably 95% Kentucky fans. Like, let's be honest. If you're an Ohio State University fan, you're probably not in Madison Square Garden.
No, they're up 7-0 right now.
Basketball team right now.
Celebrating their
you're